The invoice arrived 3 days after my sister fell. It was addressed to me because 18 years earlier I had pulled every permit on her house. The contractor had circled an unpaid balance in red, but that was not what made me sit down at my kitchen table. The work description read, remove west ramp handrail, relocate master bath grab bar, disconnect rear door alert, reinstall after evaluation. The date was the day before June's wheelchair tipped at the bottom of that same ramp. My niece Beth had told the hospital it proved her mother could no longer live safely at home. She had already chosen a residential facility and packed half the house. At 66, I was a retired building inspector. Beth knew that. She simply believed family loyalty would keep me from inspecting the one thing she needed me not to see. Before I tell you what happened in that hospital conference room, understand this: I did not begin by trying to punish my niece. I began by trying to make sure my sister survived the people who claimed they were helping her. My name is Frank Mercer. I spent 34 years inspecting houses, schools, churches, and small commercial buildings across 3 counties in western Pennsylvania. People used to complain that I could spot a missing stair fastener from 20 feet away. They were exaggerating. Usually it was 12. My sister June was 3 years younger than me and far better company. Before her accident, she had been a children's librarian with the kind of memory that made children believe she knew every book ever printed. She remembered who hated sad endings, who loved dinosaurs, and which child needed to sit near the door because crowded rooms made him nervous. 18 years ago, a delivery truck crossed the center line and changed the shape of her life. June survived, but a spinal injury left her with limited use of her legs. After months of rehabilitation, she refused the apartment our family suggested and said she wanted to go home. The old farmhouse where we grew up had narrow doors, steep steps, and a bathroom designed by someone who apparently believed human beings never aged. So we changed it. I widened the halls, lowered the kitchen counters, built a cedar ramp along the west side, and installed reinforced blocking behind every grab bar. Our father had taught me carpentry, but inspection work had taught me something just as important. A safe house is not made by equipment. It is made by details that keep working on an ordinary Tuesday when nobody is watching. June chose the paint the cabinet pulls and a blue front door that I said would show dirt. Then I'll know when to wash it, she told me. For the next 17 years, she lived there independently. She drove a modified van until her shoulders got worse. She taught reading classes online, kept a vegetable garden in waist-high planters, and hosted Sunday soup for anyone willing to bring bread. Every October, I checked the ramp bolts, door thresholds, smoke alarms, and bathroom fixtures. I kept a red binder with inspection photographs, repair receipts, and notes in my square block handwriting. June teased me about it, but she also kept it in the top drawer of her desk. You realize normal brothers bring flowers, she once said. Flowers don't stop a loose rail. No, but they make you seem less like a county employee. The binder became a joke between us. Then after my wife Ellen died 4 years ago, it became part of the way June looked after me too. She started scheduling our October inspection herself even when nothing needed fixing. I would bring tools. She would make tomato soup. We would argue over whether the cedar bench by the kitchen window needed another coat of oil. Beth was June's only child. When she was young, Beth had been fearless. She climbed scaffolding while I built the ramp, stole my carpenter's pencil, and announced at age 9 that she would own a hotel someday. She loved her mother fiercely after the accident. During high school, she learned how to load the wheelchair into the van and could fix a loose caster faster than most medical supply technicians. I was proud of her. That is important to say. Families often rewrite people after betrayal as if the person was always cruel and everyone else was always wise. Beth had done good things. She had sat beside June through infections, insurance appeals, and long nights when nerve pain would not let her sleep. But good history does not make present harm impossible. 3 years before the fall, Beth married a man named Connor Wells. He ran a small kitchen remodeling company and had the polished confidence of someone who could make a delayed job sound like a favor. I never trusted his numbers, though I had no proof he was dishonest. Beth opened a home staging business with him. For a while, they seemed to do well. Then jobs slowed. Suppliers began calling. Connor's truck disappeared, replaced by an older one he said he bought for tax reasons. Beth stopped talking about the business and started talking about unlocking value. That phrase showed up every time she looked around June's house. The farmhouse sat on 4 acres near a growing medical corridor. Developers had bought 2 neighboring properties. June's land was worth more than any of us expected, but she had no interest in selling. "This house fits me," she said. "That matters more than what it fits on a spreadsheet." Beth moved in with June after announcing she was pregnant. She said she wanted to help during the last months before the baby arrived. Connor stayed most nights, but kept their apartment near his jobs. At first, I was relieved. June's shoulders were weaker, and I worried about her transferring from bed on bad days. Beth arranged groceries, drove her to appointments, and added a smart door alert so she could hear if June needed help at night. Then my visits became inconvenient. Once Beth said June was sleeping. Another time she said a nurse had advised fewer visitors. The Sunday soup stopped because too many people exhausted Mom. When I called June directly, Beth often answered and said her phone was charging. I noticed. I did not press hard enough. My flaw has always been the same. When I know how to fix something, I move too quickly and leave other people feeling handled. After June's accident, I made decisions before asking her. She once told me, "Frank, I lost movement, not judgment." I remembered that sentence so clearly that I overcorrected. I became determined not to interfere. When Beth said she was taking over more care, I told myself June would speak if she needed me. I forgot how hard speaking becomes when the person controlling the room also controls your phone, your rides, and the story everyone hears. The call about June's fall came on a Sunday evening. Beth said her mother had tried to use the west ramp alone, lost control, and tipped sideways into the flower bed. She had a fractured wrist, 2 cracked ribs, and a deep bruise along her hip. No head injury, no spinal change. Painful, but survivable. At the hospital, Beth met me outside June's room. "You need to prepare yourself," she said. "For what? This can't continue. She isn't safe in that house." June had been independent for 17 years, so the certainty in Beth's voice bothered me. "Where is Connor?" I asked. "Handling things at the house." "What things?" "Packing what she'll need." "For the hospital." Beth looked away for the next step. Inside the room, June was pale and medicated. Her right arm was splinted. Beth answered most questions before June could. The nurse asked whether the fall had happened because of equipment failure. "No," Beth said. "The house just isn't suitable anymore." June opened her eyes. "The rail was gone," she murmured. Beth touched her shoulder. "Mom, the rail was being repaired." June looked at me. I didn't know. Beth gave me a tired smile. "She's confused from the medication." That was the first moment I felt the old inspector in me wake up. Not because June could never be confused. Pain medication can blur anyone. Because Beth had already prepared the explanation. I asked when the rail had been removed. Connor had hired someone, Beth said. The wood had softened. They planned to replace it after a safety evaluation. Who evaluated it? We're arranging that. Who decided it was unsafe? Connor knows construction. Connor installed cabinets. That did not make him incompetent, but it did not make him an accessibility specialist either. Beth then told me she had toured Meadow Ridge Residence, a private assisted living facility 40 minutes away. They had an opening. She had scheduled a hospital care planning meeting for Tuesday and expected June to transfer directly there once medically cleared. June whispered, "I'm going home." Beth sighed. This is what she does. She refuses reality until there's a crisis. I looked at my sister's face. She was in pain, but she was not absent. I bent close and asked June, "Do you want Beth to speak for you right now?" Her answer came slowly. "No." Beth's expression changed. "Uncle Frank, don't turn this into a fight. I'm asking what she wants. She needs rest." Then let her rest without answering for her. The nurse quietly updated the chart so June would be asked directly whenever possible. That was my first consequential decision. I stopped treating the situation as Beth's care problem and started treating it as June's choice. I did not accuse anyone. I did not mention the house value or Connor's business. I only asked the hospital social worker, Marisol Vega, to make sure June received an independent capacity and home safety assessment before any discharge plan was finalized. Beth objected. "We already know what the house is like." Marisol replied, "Then an assessment should confirm it." Beth did not like that answer. The next morning the invoice arrived. I read it once then again, with a ruler under each line the way I used to review violation reports. The contractor was Sloan Home Services, a two-man company from the next county. The invoice listed 3 tasks completed on Friday afternoon. Remove west ramp handrail for exterior staging. Shift bathroom grab bar 6 inches left. Disconnect rear door alert pending smart home upgrade. The notes said customer requested temporary condition through Monday evaluation. Occupant not present during work. June had been home Friday. I called Sloan Home Services and identified myself as the permit contact whose address appeared on the invoice. I did not pretend to represent June. I asked only why it had been mailed to me. The owner, a man named Marty Sloan, said Connor had given him the permit packet from the original accessibility renovation. My address was on the cover. Connor had not paid the final balance, and calls were going unanswered. "Did you know someone using a wheelchair lived there?" I asked. A pause. "We were told the house was vacant during staging." It wasn't. Another pause, longer this time. Marty asked whether anyone had been hurt. I told him there had been a fall. He swore under his breath. Then he said something that moved the matter beyond careless renovation. His employee had warned Beth that the ramp should not be used without the rail. Beth replied that her mother would be at an outpatient evaluation all weekend and that the west door would remain locked. She asked them not to reinstall anything until after the assessor saw the property Monday morning. "Do you have that in writing?" I asked. She texted it. "Preserve it. Don't send it to me yet. Someone official may need to request it." That was the second consequential decision. Evidence first, family argument later. I photographed the invoice, placed the original in a plastic sleeve, and called Marisol. She told me not to visit the property alone and not to remove anything. Adult Protective Services had already been notified because June was a dependent adult injured in a home where recent safety modifications were unclear. Then I called my former colleague Sam Ortega. Sam had spent 22 years as the county's accessibility inspector. We had argued over ramp slopes, handrail returns, and whether my coffee qualified as a hazardous substance. He was retired now, but the county still used him for occasional consulting. I explained the invoice without naming motives. Could removing that rail cause a chair to tip, I asked. Depends on the user and grade. The west ramp at June's house. Sam had inspected it twice. That rail wasn't decorative, he said. She used it to correct drift on descent. You built the ramp with a slight landing turn because of the maple tree. So if the rail disappeared without warning, she could overcorrect toward the flower bed. That was exactly where June had landed. Sam agreed to inspect if the county requested him. He also reminded me that the red binder contained annual photographs with scale markers. I knew that. I simply had not yet realized why it mattered. I drove to the hospital and asked June about the house. She was more alert. Beth had gone to meet Connor, and for the first time we were alone. "Did you know the handrail was removed?" I asked. "No." "Did anyone tell you not to use the west ramp?" "No." The front path was blocked with Connor's tile boxes. I went west because Beth said my prescription was waiting in the mailbox. The mailbox sat near the road down the west ramp and along a paved path. "Did Beth leave before you went?" "She said she was taking a shower." "Was the rear door alert working?" June's eyes narrowed. "No, it stopped Friday. That alert was not an alarm for intruders. It chimed in Beth's room if June opened the rear door at night or needed help near the ramp. If it had been disconnected, Beth would not hear the door. "Did you call out after you fell?" "For a while." "How long?" "I don't know." Mrs. Klein heard me from her garden. Mrs. Klein lived across the side field nearly 200 feet away. I wrote down June's words exactly. Then I asked about the bathroom grab bar. She looked toward the door. "It moved," she said. "When?" "Friday." I reached where it always was and hit tile. "Did you fall?" "No, I caught the sink." "Did you tell Beth?" "She said I was getting forgetful." That was the apparent problem, becoming proof of deliberate risk. 3 safety features changed in one afternoon, and the person most affected was told nothing. June closed her eyes. I thought maybe she was right. About what? That I forgot where the bar was. The harm in that sentence went beyond ribs and a wrist. Beth had not only changed the environment, she had used the changes to make June distrust her own memory. I sat beside the bed and asked the question I should have asked months earlier. What else has changed? June told me Beth had begun controlling her mail after a missed insurance renewal. The renewal had not actually been missed. Beth had put it in a drawer. She took over online banking because June's hands hurt when typing. She canceled June's transportation service and said family could handle appointments. She limited phone calls because June became agitated afterward. 3 weeks earlier, Beth had brought papers to the kitchen table and said they allowed her to coordinate medical care. June signed 2 pages without reading every attachment because Beth stood beside her saying they were late for an appointment. "Do you know what you signed?" I asked. "Not anymore." "Did you authorize the house to be sold?" Her eyes opened. "No." "Did you agree to Meadow Ridge?" "No." "Did you give Beth authority to make every financial decision?" I thought it was only for bills while my shoulder healed. I felt anger rise, but anger was not the useful part. "Would you like an independent person to review those documents with you?" "Yes." "Would you like Beth removed from your medical contact list until that happens?" June hesitated. "She's my daughter." "I know. She's having a baby." "I know." "What happens to her if I do that?" That question explained why coercion works inside families. The harmed person is asked to carry the consequences of stopping the harm. I said, "We can protect you without deciding her whole future today." June looked at her splinted wrist. "Then do that." Marisol arranged for June to designate me temporarily as the person she wanted present for care discussions. June also asked the hospital to communicate directly with her before Beth. It was not a court order. It was June using the authority she still had. When Beth returned, she noticed the change immediately. The nurse asked June whether she wanted pain medication before asking Beth whether June had eaten. A physical therapist addressed June directly. Marisol handed Beth a written notice explaining that the Tuesday meeting would include an independent occupational therapist and an adult services representative. Beth waited until we were in the corridor. "You're humiliating her," she said. "How?" "Making strangers evaluate whether she can think. You told the hospital she was confused. That's different." "Why?" "Because I'm her daughter." I had heard versions of that sentence from negligent landlords, careless contractors, and one church treasurer who believed volunteer status made missing money less missing. A relationship can explain access. It does not erase accountability. I asked Beth who had scheduled the Monday property evaluation mentioned on the invoice. Her face went still. What invoice? Sloan Home Services. Connor appeared at the end of the corridor before she answered. Beth walked toward him quickly. They spoke in low voices, then Connor came to me. The rail was rotten, he said. Cedar doesn't become structurally rotten between October and March without leaving evidence. You haven't seen it. Neither had the contractor. He was told the house was vacant. Connor's eyes shifted. It was a misunderstanding. Who was evaluating the property Monday? A realtor. Beth wanted a value estimate in case June needed long-term care. Did June ask for that? She doesn't understand the cost of care. That is not an answer. Connor stepped closer. You retired, Frank. The world didn't stop because you put away a clipboard. No, I said. But screws still leave holes. He laughed, but the sound was forced. That afternoon, Adult Protective Services obtained permission from June to inspect the farmhouse. June gave written consent for me and Sam to attend as technical support. Beth objected but could not reasonably claim the house was too dangerous to assess, while refusing an assessment. We met there Monday morning. The blue front door was partly blocked by boxes of porcelain tile. The west ramp rail had been removed cleanly. The bolt holes were bright inside with no dark fibers, decay, or splitting. The cedar smelled freshly cut where one support had been trimmed. Sam crouched beside the holes. This wood is sound, he said. The county investigator photographed everything. Inside the bathroom, grab bar had been moved 6 inches left and fastened through tile without reaching the reinforced blocking behind the wall. I knew because I had installed the blocking and documented its location in the red binder. Sam tested the new bar with a pressure gauge. It shifted. Unsafe, he said, and unnecessary. The investigator asked why anyone would move it. I pointed to the transfer position beside the toilet. Where it was, June could reach it before lifting. Where it is now, she has to lean first. If she misses it, looks like weakness or confusion. In the rear hall, the door alert had not malfunctioned. Its power lead had been unplugged and tucked behind a cabinet. 3 changes. 3 ordinary explanations if viewed separately. Together they formed a system. A rail removed. A support shifted. A call alert silenced. Then a fall was used as proof that June could not manage her own home. The investigator asked Beth for the red binder. She said she had never seen it. I walked to June's desk and opened the top drawer. Empty. Beth folded her arms. Maybe Mom moved it. June had not been able to access the house since the fall. I checked the second drawer, the bookshelf, and the cabinet where she kept warranties. The binder was gone. That missing binder was the first unexpected absence that would later matter. Connor stood by the kitchen counter watching me. You keep copies of everything, don't you? He asked. Almost. His face told me he wished he had asked sooner. I had scanned every October inspection into a county archive when accessibility grant funds were used. The files were public records attached to the permit history. Sam requested certified copies through the proper office. The photographs showed the rail solid and intact 5 months earlier. They showed the original grab bar location. They showed the door alert functioning during the last annual check. Beth's strongest explanation that failing equipment required emergency work had begun to collapse. But the inspection revealed something else. Half of June's books were gone. Family photographs had been removed from the hallway. Painter's tape marked furniture with numbers. In the dining room, a folder from Harlan and Pike Realty sawed beneath a stack of staging catalogs. The investigator opened nothing without permission. June, participating by video call from the hospital, authorized Marisol to retrieve the folder and bring it to her. Inside was a proposed listing agreement for the farmhouse. The signature looked like June's. June said it was not. The document named Beth as the contact and listed the property as vacant upon hospital discharge. The proposed listing date was Wednesday, one day after the care meeting. That was the second layer becoming something older and wider. The fall had not created the plan to move June. It had been used to accelerate a plan already in motion. Back at the hospital, June asked to see every page she had signed. Beth refused at first, saying the documents were at home. Marisol reminded her that June had the right to review forms presented in her name. By evening, Connor delivered a folder through the nurse's station. The first pages concerned medical scheduling and bill payment. Buried behind them was a broad financial authorization. Another page allowed Beth to communicate with Meadow Ridge and place a deposit. June's initials appeared beside several paragraphs, but the ink color changed halfway down one page. June stared at the papers for a long time. "I signed the top sheet," she said. Beth kept turning pages and pointing. "I did not know this was underneath." An independent advocate named Priya Shah reviewed the documents with June. Priya did not call the signatures fraudulent. She said the circumstances and inconsistencies required formal review, and that June could revoke any authority she no longer wanted Beth to have. I expected June to ask me what she should do. She did not. She asked Priya, "If I revoke this today, can my daughter still visit me?" "Yes. Financial authority and family contact are separate." "Can she sell my house?" "Not if you have capacity and do not consent." "Can she move me to Meadow Ridge?" "Not simply because she wants to." June picked up the pen awkwardly with her uninjured hand. "Then take her off everything." I said nothing. That was harder for me than it sounds. The old Frank would have explained each page, predicted every consequence, and guided her hand to the signature line. Instead, I sat beside her and let her act. The credit union placed additional verification on June's accounts and blocked new online transactions while it reviewed disputed activity. Harlan and Pike suspended the proposed listing. Meadow Ridge paused the admission deposit after learning that June had not knowingly authorized placement. None of those steps punished Beth. They removed the speed she depended on. Without speed, facts had time to catch up. The credit union found that Beth had transferred money from June's household account to Connor's company twice in 6 months. The descriptions said accessibility materials. No materials had been installed. One transfer matched an overdue supplier judgment against Connor's business. When confronted, Beth claimed the payments reimbursed Connor for months of caregiving and planned renovations. June said she had agreed to neither. A realtor from Harlan and Pike told the investigator that Beth expected to use part of the sale proceeds to buy a larger house with an in-law suite. She had described the arrangement as a way for June to help the growing family while transitioning into care. There was no in-law suite on the house Beth had toured. There was a nursery, an office for Connor, and a finished basement Beth planned to use for her staging inventory. The motive was not simple greed. Simple motives are usually less dangerous. Beth believed she had earned the house. She had spent years helping her mother. She was pregnant, frightened about money, angry that Connor's business was failing, and convinced that June's property would eventually become hers. In Beth's mind, moving the inheritance forward was practical. If June resisted, that resistance became evidence that she no longer understood what was best. Love entitlement, exhaustion, and debt had mixed until Beth could no longer tell care from control. On Monday night, she made one final attempt. She entered June's room carrying a small yellow gift bag and an ultrasound photograph. Marisol was present because June had requested that visits be supervised until the care meeting. Beth placed the photograph on the blanket. "Your granddaughter," she said. June looked at it. Her face softened. Beth sat down. "I know you think I'm pushing. I'm scared. I can't lose you and raise a baby and keep that house running. Meadow Ridge has nurses. You could come home for holidays. We could stop fighting. June asked, why was the rail removed? Beth's eyes filled. Connor said it needed work. Why wasn't I told? You would have argued. Why did you send me to the mailbox? Beth looked toward Marisol. I didn't send you anywhere. June's voice remained level. You said my prescription was waiting. I said it might be. Why did you tell the realtor I would be gone after discharge? Because I was trying to create options. Options for whom? Beth began to cry. She opened her purse and took out one final document. It was a Meadow Ridge admission consent with a yellow tab beside the signature line. Please, she said, sign this and let us reset. I'll cancel the house listing if you still hate it after 30 days. Marisol immediately asked whether June wanted the document removed. June looked at Beth. You changed my house so I would fail inside it, she said. And you still think the problem is that I won't cooperate. Beth stood so quickly the chair struck the wall. You have no idea what I have sacrificed for you. June flinched, but she did not look away. I do, she said. That is why I kept forgiving things I should have stopped. Beth left the gift bag, the ultrasound, and the unsigned form behind. The care planning meeting began Tuesday at 10 in a conference room near the rehabilitation wing. It was not a courtroom. There were no polished speeches, no dramatic exhibits on easels. Just a rectangular table, a speakerphone, a wall clock, and too many chairs. June sat at the head of the table in a hospital wheelchair, her wrist elevated on a pillow. I sat to her right. Priya sat to her left. Beth and Connor entered together. The first thing Beth noticed was the empty chair beside June. She had assumed it would be hers. The second thing Connor noticed was the red binder on the table. Sam had rebuilt it from certified county records and my digital copies. The replacement binder was newer, but the faded label from the original scan had been printed on the cover, June Accessibility and Annual Safety. Connor stopped walking for half a second. The third thing they noticed was Marty Sloan seated beside the adult services investigator. Beth whispered, "Why is he here?" Marty looked down at his hands. Marisol opened the meeting by stating its purpose to determine a safe discharge plan based on June's wishes, medical condition, home environment, and available support. The hospital occupational therapist, Donna Ruiz, summarized June's assessment. June demonstrated intact decision-making, understood her injuries and treatment, and could safely perform most transfers once her wrist healed. During recovery, she needed temporary assistance with bathing meals and wheelchair loading. Dana said the farmhouse remained a realistic long-term option if the removed safety features were correctly restored, and if June had reliable support she chose. Beth leaned forward. You evaluated her in a controlled hospital. At home she forgets things. She fell because she cannot judge risk. Dana replied, My role is not to diagnose memory loss based on a family statement. I found no evidence today that she lacks capacity to understand risk. Connor said the house failed her. That was when Sam opened the red binder. He placed 3 photographs on the table. The west ramp in October rail secure. The bathroom grab bar in its reinforced position. The rear door alert lit and functioning. Then the investigator placed Monday's photographs beside them. Fresh bolt holes, a loose bar mounted outside the wall blocking, an unplugged alert lead hidden behind a cabinet. Connor crossed his arms. We were renovating. Temporary conditions happen. Marty spoke. You told me the house was vacant. Connor turned toward him. I said the work area would be clear. Marty shook his head. My employee asked who used the ramp. Beth texted that the occupant would be away all weekend. We warned that the rail had to be reinstalled before anyone used it. Beth said I believed Mom was staying with Frank. June looked at her. You brought me breakfast Saturday morning. Beth's lips parted. No answer came. Marty handed the investigator printed copies of the messages from his company phone. One message instructed the crew to leave the rail off until after a Monday property assessor visit. Another asked them to remove the bathroom bar before interior photographs, because it made the room look institutional. Beth's strongest excuse that these were emergency safety repairs failed in her own words. The changes were made for staging. The danger was treated as acceptable because the person exposed to it was expected to disappear. Connor tried another defense. June wasn't supposed to go outside alone. I asked, who told her that? He looked at Beth. Beth said, she knows her limitations. June answered, I knew my house. You changed it. The room fell quiet. The investigator then summarized the proposed listing, the disputed signatures, and the transfers to Connor's company. She did not announce guilt. She stated that the matters had been referred for financial review, and that June had revoked Beth's authority. Beth stared at Priya. You made her sign that. Priya said June made the decision after I explained her options without you, Frank, or Connor directing her. Beth turned to me. This is what you wanted. You always thought I wasn't good enough to care for her. No, I said. I thought you were capable of caring for her. That's why I ignored signs I should have questioned. She laughed bitterly. So now you get to be the hero. That accusation landed because part of me wanted the role. I wanted to be the competent older brother again, the man with the binder who arrived after everyone else made a mess. But this was not my house to reclaim or my daughter to defeat. I looked at June before I answered. She gave a small nod. You didn't prove she couldn't live there, I said. You changed the house until it agreed with you. Beth's face went blank. Connor pushed his chair back. What happens now? Marisol answered with practical steps. June would not be discharged to Meadow Ridge. She would spend several weeks in short-term rehabilitation while her wrist healed. During that time, licensed contractors chosen by June would restore the rail grab bar's alert system and clear access paths. A professional home care service would assist her during the transition, funded through her existing coverage and her own accounts. Beth and Connor would have no unsupervised access to the property or finances while the review continued. The realtor had canceled the listing. The credit union would require June's direct approval for future transactions. Visits were June's decision, subject to the rehabilitation center's safety rules. Beth looked at her mother. You're choosing him over me. June's eyes filled, but her voice did not break. I am choosing myself. You made it feel like those were the same thing. That was the moment the power Beth thought she controlled disappeared. Not because I took it, because June stopped lending it to her. The meeting ended without shouting. Connor left first. Beth remained seated, one hand resting over her stomach, staring at the ultrasound photograph she had placed beside her notebook. For a second, I saw the little girl who once stole my carpenter's pencil. I did not hate her. That made the truth harder, not easier. She had not become a stranger. She had become someone we loved, who was no longer safe to trust. The aftermath took months. The financial review found that Connor's company had received more than $18,000 from June's accounts without clear invoices or written approval. Some money was returned after the credit union challenged the transfers. The rest became part of a civil repayment agreement. No instant arrest, no dramatic seizure. Just records, interviews, and consequences that could not be shouted away. Connor and Beth separated before the baby was born. I never learned whether the marriage had already been failing or whether the investigation finished what debt had started. Connor accepted responsibility for directing the contractors and lost a major supplier relationship after the company reviewed his business practices. Beth entered counseling through a family support program. She sent June 3 letters. June read the first and stored the other 2 unopened in a kitchen drawer. You're allowed to take your time, I told her. I know, she said. I'm practicing. The farmhouse repairs took 2 weeks. Sam supervised, though June made every final choice. She replaced the west handrail with powder-coated steel instead of cedar. "You hate how that looks," she said. "I hate it less than a funeral." She rolled her eyes. That was when I knew she was becoming herself again. We moved the grab bar back into the reinforced blocking and added a second support she could reach with either hand. The rear alert was replaced with a system that contacted a care service June chose, not a relative who controlled whether help arrived. The boxes of tile disappeared. The numbered tape came off the furniture. We rehung the family photographs, but June left one empty space in the hallway. "For the baby," I asked. "Maybe," she said. Beth gave birth to a healthy girl named Clara. For the first 6 weeks, there was no contact. Then Beth asked whether June would accept a supervised visit at the rehabilitation center. June said no. A month later, she said yes. I offered to attend. June shook her head. "You spent years making sure every room was safe," she said. "Now let me decide what to do inside it." So I waited in the lobby. The visit lasted 23 minutes. Beth brought Clara in a plain carrier and did not bring papers, explanations, or requests. June held the baby with her good arm and cried. When Beth began apologizing, June stopped her. "Not today," she said. "Today is for meeting her." That boundary was smaller than revenge and stronger than forgiveness, performed too early. Over the next year, Beth repaid part of the money and completed a caregiver boundary program. June allowed brief visits, then longer ones. Trust did not return because someone said sorry. It returned in teaspoons, an appointment Beth did not control, a letter. She did not open a promise she kept without asking for credit. Connor remained out of June's life. As for me, I changed too. I still checked bolts. I still kept records. But I stopped arriving at June's house with a list unless she asked for one. The first October after the fall, I carried the rebuilt red binder into her kitchen. June had made tomato soup. The cedar bench by the window looked dry, and I opened my mouth to mention it. She pointed a spoon at me. "Don't!" I sat down. After lunch, she rolled to the desk and placed the binder in the top drawer. Then she took out the original cover. Beth had hidden it in a box of staging supplies. The cardboard was bent and the label was stained, but my old handwriting was still readable. June accessibility and annual safety. She laid it beside the new binder. "You know what was missing from both?" she asked. "What?" "My signature." I felt the answer before she said it. The binders documented what I believed kept her safe. They contained photographs, measurements, and expert notes. They did not contain a page asking what safety meant to her. June opened a fresh sheet of paper. At the top, she wrote, "This house works because I choose how I live in it." Below that, she listed the people authorized to enter the help she wanted, the help she did not want, and what should happen if she was temporarily unable to speak. She named Priya as an independent contact, and me as backup. Not first, backup. I signed as a witness. That evening before I left, we walked the west ramp together. June controlled her chair with one hand and tested the new rail with the other. At the landing, she stopped beside the flower bed where she had fallen. The crushed plants had grown back unevenly. One yellow coneflower leaned away from the others but remained upright. June touched its stem. "Should we stake it?" I asked. "No," she said. "It already found its balance. A house can be repaired with tools. A family takes truth, boundaries, and time. The day I opened that invoice, I thought my job was to save my sister from a dangerous plan. What I learned was that protection without respect can become another kind of control. Beth tried to remove June's choices by changing the world around her and calling the result proof. I helped restore the rail. June restored her own authority. And that was the part no inspection report could measure. A safe home begins when the person living inside it is believed. If this story stayed with you, tell me where you think care ends and control begins. Subscribe for more original family justice stories.